How do you see the difference, though? If maybe someone hands you something someone peed on, or the maple syrup version?
Well, I mean, usually...
Hallo und willkommen! Ich bin Meister Lenz here, this is Jesselyn, and this is Vlog Dave. And today we're talking about...
things that I miss in Canada.
Because you're Canadian.
Yes.
From Germany.
From you?
Well, from Canada.
Like, things you miss in Canada from Germany. Like,
great.
Things.
Yes.
Best intro ever.
Cool, let's get started.
All on board, what should I do?
Ah, ich weiß.
Yes. So, first thing, it seems silly, but chip flavors.
Oh yeah, I mean, no, that's not silly at all. They have some really yummy ones in different countries. When I stayed that year in Australia, for example, or even when I visited Thailand, they have the most interesting flavors sometimes, really yummy.
I like the scampi flavor, like the shrimp.
You like that?
I've seen it in England, they call it scampi. But yeah.
Scamp.
Scam. It's a scam. Yeah,
Scam.
yeah, it's like shrimp flavor. I like it. It's tasty. But like, for example, what I found when I first came to Germany was the, I almost said übertrieben, but the amazing amount of paprika. Everything is paprika. And it's either that or it's like the peanut flips. But aside from that...
Well, we do have sour cream, we do have,
Yes.
what else? A cheese flavor, we have onion, we have salt, we have balsamico vinegar, salted vinegar we got.
Well, it has actually improved since I first was here. Like, the first time I was in Germany was in 2015. And when I first came here, like, everything was paprika. There was, like, as far as the eye could see, just fields of paprika. Like, at least in the grocery store.
Well, we still had the others because I know this, because my ex from Australia that I was with in 2012, when she came here, we also bought salt and vinegar all the time.
Yeah.
Yes.
And sometimes you, like, those types of chips and stuff, they have, like, really strange names. And... for instance, there's a type of them that I really like as well, which is called chakalaka.
Oh yeah,
Oh, I've heard of that.
it's African kind of
but
flavor.
I don't know what it's made of, actually.
I think it's like a mixture of spices or something, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a mixture.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, the thing is, what's different though, like, so that the kettle chips here are really good.
Yeah.
Those are really nice. But I find even sometimes with our chip flavors that we have more intense ones. Like, I'm a massive fan of vinegar, like salt and vinegar. It's just, I put vinegar on my fries. I'm like British at heart. Like,
Apparently.
Apparently, I've been told. It's actually really normal in Canada to have vinegar with your food. Here, not so much. I've confused enough waitresses with that. But so with the chip flavors, we actually will have like salt and vinegar that's so intense it actually will kill the top layer of cells on your tongue. Like,
Well-
your tongue turns white because it's so intense with vinegar,
Wow.
and it does hurt. So, you know, not the best, but
What? Why would you want that?
well, you're supposed to stop before that part happens.
Oh, sure.
But I don't.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, you
that
know,
would probably be illegal in Germany.
Yeah.
Do
that's
you,
too
do you
offensive
guys
for that.
know these this candy saure Zungen?
Yeah, sour tongues.
Sour tongues, like, yeah, it's Weingummi.
Yeah.
And pretty much with like a sour type of
Like citric acid or something like that.
yeah, topping, and that I guess has the same effect on the tongue. So, and I've experienced that too. So,
Well, it's similar actually. What I used to do as a kid is I'd eat salt and vinegar chips, but then my favorite candy is sour Skittles. But the sour Skittles in Germany have no like powder on them or anything. The Canadian sour Skittles have a layer of citric acid powder on them.
Interesting.
And so if you eat too many of those, your tongue will bleed.
Bleed.
It actually bleeds because it's acidic, right? So it's corrosive.
Oh, damn.
But when I was a kid, my favorite flavors were salt and vinegar and then sour Skittle. And you eat that in combination, you have a terribly painful mouth, and then it's numb for a few days.
Oh, shit.
And then we have warheads, which are also painful.
We know warheads.
Yes.
oh, by
those
the
are
way,
good.
that actually reminds me of another like indirectly related topic. I don't know what that is like in Canada. The taste of, for instance, let's say Coca-Cola. It might be the same brand, but the taste and the mixture of it in Germany is different to the one in America, for instance.
I find American cola is really sweet. Like,
Yeah.
I've had American cola, like ours is different. I found in Canada it's similar to the German one. I find American Coke is really, really sweet, and then British Coke is kind of bitter.
Cocaine.
Cocaine.
Oh, sorry.
But the British stuff is actually quite tart, but I like that. But I don't really like super sweet. I like sour and salty, but not sweet.
What are your favorite chip flavors in
Chip flavors.
Canada? Chip.
So, like I said, yeah, salt and vinegar. We also have dill pickle,
Dill pickle.
which is quite vinegary, but it's really tasty. And we also have ketchup.
Yeah, we do have ketchup.
But it's like, but again, it's that whole intensity. So there's ketchup here, but the ketchup that we have is a lot more intense, like with the flavoring. And then we also have what's called all dressed. And I can't tell you what all the dressings are to make it all dressed, but it's similar to barbecue, I would think, but we also have barbecue. It's a bit sweeter than barbecue. But we have a massive amount of chip flavors. We have like, you know, all different like really spicy ones, like jalapeno ones where it like burns your mouth. We just have a lot of really intense flavors, but my favorite is definitely like the more vinegary ones.
Yeah, balsamico.
Yes, balsamic is good.
I remember though from Australia as well that the salt and vinegar chips there were so much more intense than the ones we had in Germany. So yeah.
Yeah, so those are the good ones. And the next point I have is good maple syrup. And this might upset some people, but I think it should be, you know, go without saying. Of course, that's going to be a point on my list. Yeah, I find the maple syrup here, like, even when it says like grade A Canadian, well, first of all, it's really expensive here.
Yeah, €5 for
for a little tiny little, you know, bottle, little flask of it. Whereas we can get, like, we have like say Costco, we get like a big 500 milliliter tub of maple syrup, and yes, we do actually use it, all of it. And I find that it's a bit watery here compared to what we eat. So the maple syrup I've had here, I still buy it because I mean I have to get it somewhere.
Yeah.
And I find it to be just, like I said, watery. It's not so sweet.
Well,
I actually reduced it to make it taste better.
what about the organic version that you can find? Have you bought that?
I've tried a few different types. I tried the American way or American brand. It's like some American brand thing where they put like the Statue of Liberty on everything. I've had that brand, and yeah, it's watery. I've had the organic ones, but I find just overall the maple syrup here is just not as sweet. I'm not sure why, but it'll say like grade A Canadian, and then I'm like, I disagree.
Someone once sent me like a can of maple syrup from Canada.
Yeah, you get that from Quebec. The cans of maple syrup.
It was really good. I liked it.
It is quite tasty, especially on bacon. If you cook bacon with maple syrup, salt and sweet together.
That is
Everything is tasty with bacon.
That is something I experienced for the first time when I went to America, actually, to the USA. I'm sorry. And yeah, it was quite delicious.
Was it also like maple syrup that we had at Rock am Ring?
Maybe.
That we put on the waffles?
Probably. I don't remember.
I think so.
Yeah.
That
was
wasn't
delicious.
there, but
That was, yeah. You should come with us at some point.
I'll have to do that. But yes, the maple syrup here could use some work, but I still use it to make things. I make like maple fudge, and I cook with it. I make cooked fish with it, and you cook a lot with maple syrup.
Why is like maple leaf the national symbol?
I think it's just because it's so. I guess
it's
so.
So maple.
We do. We
trees
actually
there?
we have a different type of maple tree. So it's actually sugar maple. So there's different types of maple trees. They all look similar, like with this, like the leaf, but we have the sugar maple, and it's especially. I think it was actually originally a product from the Aboriginals that lived there, and then when the European settlers came, like especially the French, when they came, they kind of picked up this idea from the Aboriginals that were there, because they would tap the trees, and then you got the sap, and then reduced it to syrup.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, well, like a lot of things in Canada, a lot of stuff we have is from the Aborigines that live there. Even the name Canada is an Aboriginal word. It's a village.
The more you know.
Yeah. Yes. And so the next point I have is our more relaxed university system.
Okay.
So
Explain.
Yes. So we pay more, of course, for university. Still not by comparison to other countries like the U.S. and England. They pay more than we do. We just pay more than they do in Germany. However, our system is more relaxed in the sense that there's no, I guess we call it forced registration, like Zwangsanmeldung.
Zwangsanmeldung, okay.
Yeah, so for example, when you go to university, it's very broad. You go there, you say, I want to get a degree in science. You'll go there, and you really just have to do enough classes that you want in that region to declare your major and your minor. But there's no one forcing you. If it takes you 10 years to finish a 4-year degree, it doesn't concern anybody. No one cares. And you take whatever you feel like. It's not like, oh, well, because, for example, here you have to say, they'll say, okay, you have to have taken physics by your second semester, and then you get like this like bonus semester on top, or up to 2. And then they give you a forced failure, even if you haven't written it. In Canada, they don't. It's just, you write it when you write it. Because they also, but I think it's also because they expect you to work next to university, because most of us have to work at least part-time when we go to school, otherwise you can't afford to live.
I mean, that's interesting because I also study at university, and I think that really like heavily depends on the subject and the field of study. Because what I study, study German sciences like linguistic sciences and philosophy as like bachelor, and we didn't have like those regulations. We could choose different lectures and stuff. And courses freely, and we weren't bound to specific courses in a semester. So, but I think it's more common in natural sciences, definitely, from what I've heard, and like technical things, engineering.
I think it also depends on when you started. I know my partner, when he went to university, when he started, he didn't have that. You could have as many attempts as you wanted to, and no one really cared. And they changed it later. But yeah, I study biology, so it's definitely really, I guess, strict.
Yeah, and the German system strongly like relies on the Bologna system. That is what it's called. Doesn't have anything to do with Bolognese.
No, damn it.
Dang it.
Yeah, but it's pretty much like these points that you can get from courses and stuff. ECTS, ECTS, and like bachelor and master system. That is pretty much that. But many people, also in Germany and I think in other countries, it's really common in European countries, are sort of rebelling against that because it's too undynamic in a way, and it doesn't really allow for studying like you would study in Canada, like without too much pressure and stuff. So yeah.
What I do find that actually also a bit stressful here is the examinations. So in Canada, I have heard from exchange students who say came to Canada that they found it to be stressful because the amount of work that's expected from you, because we have more assignments and deadlines, and we also have midterms, so midterm exams, up to 2 in a semester and before you have a final. But usually how it works is you'll have like your first and second exam has a certain weighted value to it, and then your last one also is weighted. Each is worth, but like to have a final exam that's worth more than 30% is considered to be pretty extreme. And so what they'll actually do sometimes as well, because they said, well, we want to reflect the fact that you've learned something. Like sometimes you make mistakes and you learn from those mistakes, and you'll realize that if you fail, say, a midterm. And they say, okay, we want you to reflect that you've learned something. And so now what we do is we drop the value, we drop your second midterm or whatever when you failed, and only count your final, just to show that you're not being held down by a failure. But then when you have multiple exams and tests throughout the year, it is more labor intensive. It seems so. But at least you have a lot more feedback during the year for the professors, statistical feedback as well, where they can say, oh yeah, based on statistics, everyone's doing well, or no one understands this, and then they can get that feedback. So I find that to be a bit easier to work with, to get feedback.
Okay. I don't know what you guys had to pay, but when I studied back in the day, it was pretty much like 250 to 300 euros per semester. Like at the start of each semester, or like right before that, you had to pay that fee in order to remain immatriculated. Is that even the term?
Registered. I think it is, but we would usually say registered.
Yeah. Immatrikuliert in German. And that was pretty much the fee. And then, of course, you also have to pay for your flat or wherever you live. But like strictly for studying, that was pretty much about that.
Our tuitions, like I said, we pay more than they do in Germany, unless you're in Baden-Württemberg and you're a foreign student, then you pay a lot. But in Canada, like it depends on the university you go to. The one that I went to, the University of Manitoba, it was usually, also depending on how many classes you took and what faculty you're in, was usually around $4,000 a semester. But that's why we get student loans and all that other jazz.
Yeah. All right.
Next point. Okay, so the next point that I have is I miss the nature. And
really?
Without crowding.
How can that be?
Yeah. In Canada, if you want to go camping and get away from people, like we have some really nice natural nature parks. Like I know Germany has some as well, but it's a lot easier if I go for a walk in the forest that I don't encounter anybody. And even the underbrush is much more thick and lush, and you could say, but of course that comes with its own dangers as well. So like
animals.
Yeah, well,
Wildlife,
not just the animals, but people who get lost because like, oh, Canada's great. They go out in nature and they don't think about the wildlife, but also the fact of how unbelievably easy it is to get lost. And you really are in the middle of nowhere, and sometimes several 100 kilometers from any sort of city or town. Then you're in trouble.
Yeah,
So-
sounds like it. Damn.
Yeah.
I never knew. I mean, it makes sense because Canada has all the nature, right? Or every possible. I mean, not deserts. I don't think.
We do have a desert.
Really?
We have more than one desert. Yeah.
What?
Canada has a desert?
We have one in Saskatchewan. There's a desert as well as in Manitoba. In fact, some Germans might know this. In Canada, in Manitoba, in Shiloh, there's an army base where a lot of Germans will go to train for desert-style warfare.
Wow. Okay. Interesting. Damn. I didn't. I never
Okay.
knew. The
Yeah.
more you know.
Yes.
Wow. Okay,
Yes.
that was really new to me. Like
Yep.
surprising.
Yes.
But I mean, of course, from a German's perspective, I've never been to Canada yet, but I know that we also have like really really awesome.
Quite different.
Well, that is the original meaning, though, of awful. Awe-inspiring. But now it's become something to be something bad.
Yeah.
Okay, oh,
Yeah.
the
Full
more
of
you
The
know.
awe.
more
We have many awesome green spots and nature and stuff. I mean, for especially where I come from, but here as well in the Sauerland region, it's pretty much famous for its nature. And where I live, we're pretty much surrounded by huge forests, like huge forest area. And we've actually been hiking there at one point. That was really fun. And yeah.
Dave,
But-
didn't you hear their shit in comparison?
But of course, I mean, I would also love to experience the Canadian.
Yeah, me too. For the
Wow.
nature, like I said.
Yeah.
Well, it's also really nice as well because, like I said, sometimes it's just nice to get away from just people. And so, yeah, you could go into a forest somewhere. And, like, for example, where I live in Germany, there's a forest right near where I live. But if you want to go out there for some peace and quiet, well, usually about every 10 or so minutes, someone will come by. And so that, because everyone just kind of goes there. Whereas in Canada, you can go to a forest and maybe you don't encounter anybody. Like, as long as you're not in a camping park, and you won't encounter anybody ever. Or at least not for maybe one person a day. Like, I used to go horseback riding at my grandparents' place, and we'd go out, I don't know, in the back forest. Had like 400 acres behind them of a forest and whatnot. And it was like on the old shores of Lake Agassiz. So it was all this nice nature, with like cliffs, or like sand cliffs and stuff.
Damn.
And I'd go out there, and I think we encountered one person in the forest because they happen to have a cabin in there. But otherwise, you're just going out and you don't see anyone. There's nature, and
It's awesome.
that's really nice.
Do you know the game Alan Wake?
No.
Dave,
Oh wait, yes, yes, I do.
not
I've
on
heard of
topic.
it.
What's the next toy?
The next thing.
You don't have much battery life.
oh,
that's
yeah.
why.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
The next subject is air conditioning.
Oh yes. Go for
Oh
it.
my lordy, is air conditioning a lovely
Lordy.
thing? And I don't know why they don't have it here. It's, oh man,
Is saying "Oh my lordy" really is like a Canadian thing as well?
I don't
I've
know.
never heard that before.
Oh lordy,
Probably.
I don't know. I say it enough that it might be.
Or just like the band.
No, lordy is in like, it's like saying oh my god, but it sounds less
Yeah.
offensive, I guess, if that matters to you.
Nope.
Yeah, no. But yeah, air conditioning. I find it's interesting how that's not so widely used here. Like, people just put a lot of fans in their houses, or I've had classrooms where it's like sitting in a greenhouse because they have just like a lecture with just windows around the building, but no air conditioning.
Yeah. I mean, during this time of the year, I would definitely appreciate air conditioning inside my apartment as well. But the point many Germans make is actually that it is so rare that we get this hot weather that it's not worth buying air conditioning or installing it in your house for that relatively short amount of time during the year. But then again, I think a couple of months of intense heat warrant the purchase of an air conditioning unit.
Yeah.
In my humble opinion, maybe people out there see it differently, or the Germans out there, but especially during this summer, which was is still very humid and disgustingly hot for my taste, I would definitely say buy an air conditioning unit, or it's worth buying one at least.
Yeah, the last kinds of summers actually. And I mean, the problem is, I guess, that many German houses were built like many decades ago, and of course they didn't have air conditioning back then. But these days, with like higher temperatures and stuff, it might be of use to have those. And I mean, especially temporarily speaking, right now with the whole situation we're in,
Like global warming, or
yeah, like with filtering air as well,
Corona.
like
Corona. Yeah.
and stuff. Like air conditioning, especially in public buildings like schools, is a huge problem in Germany because most schools that I know of, and I guess that is pretty much common in most parts of Germany, they have windows, and often like really big windows as well. But the problem is you can't really open them, like if at all, because out of safety reasons. And I guess it makes sense in a way, but right now that is like a huge problem. Actually.
Yeah. Well, I mean, my argument against air conditioning being too new is that even the Mycenaean Greeks had air conditioning figured out. Just water, Verdunstung, what is that, like evaporating?
Evaporating.
Evaporating.
That's why I enjoy driving this car, because it has air conditioning.
Yeah.
Yes.
That was actually very interesting that you came up with the German term and you couldn't come up with the English one.
That honestly happens more and more often now, where I start questioning my own grammar and my own language. I don't know.
I mean, I guess for us it's the same, because sometimes when we say something, we come up with the English term first, and we can't come up with the German one, right?
Yeah.
So
that will happen to you.
Strange.
Okay,
Yes.
next one.
Next one, after air conditioning comes winter events. For example, in Canada, because we do have such intense winters, especially again where I'm from, they actually call it winter peg, because it gets really cold and it's winter. Most of the year is winter. We have a lot of really nice winter activities and events. Like we have in Manitoba, like in Winnipeg, it's called Festival de Voyageur, so the Voyageurs Festival. And it's really nice, but like it's not just that. We'll have like all over the country, we'll have things like mazes made of ice, or we'll have like snow events like snowshoe races where you have to like run around in snowshoes, or tobogganing is really fun. Sledding. Yeah, sledding. Tobogganing. Oh. So we'll have like the tobogganing, sledding, and also sledding, which is also known as snowmobiling. Dangerous, but also fun.
Not to be confused with slutting.
Sledding. Looking at me like I should know what that is.
No idea. It's like dogging.
Like dogging? Like dog sledding?
Okay, it doesn't matter. Kids don't Google that.
Don't look it up. But actually, I have been dog sledding, and that's really fun as well. There's also...
I'm so sorry.
I hope so. No. We also have things like, what's really nice in the winter, we also have things like, say, maple syrup on snow. We like take really clean snow and you pour hot maple syrup, and it gets really gummy right away, like really sticky, and you roll it on a popsicle stick, and then you eat that like a sucker.
How do you know it's really clean?
Well, because no one peed in it.
That is the definition of cleanliness.
It's like fresh snow, freshly fallen snow.
Oh.
You hope for the best.
Something's on the ground. No one peed on it, I don't think. That's clean.
Well, it's what we got.
And of course we're going to use maple syrup for that.
Of course we are.
We're Canadian.
Exactly, it's what we do.
That's interesting, though.
Yeah, it's really nice. Like they go like snowball fights and just like skiing, snowboarding.
How do you see the difference, though? If maybe someone hands you something someone peed on, or the maple syrup version?
Well, I mean, usually if it's clean snow, it'll be white.
Yeah, but after being poured on.
Oh no! The maple syrup, you watch them do it, but it's on clean snow. It doesn't. The snow doesn't stick to the maple syrup. You just pour the maple syrup on the snow, and then it gets really sticky right away. And like I said, then you roll it, and it actually just sits just like a sucker, without the snow.
Ah, interesting.
Yeah.
Do you have also like maple beer in Canada?
Yes.
Okay.
Of course they do. What do you think?
Of course you do. I think it's a craft brewery that makes it. But yeah, I find, because in Germany, I think I've only seen snow here twice, and it's really short-lived.
Yeah, sadly. Back when I grew up, 1,000 years ago, then there was still 20 centimeters of snow sometimes.
Yes, those were the days.
Of course, sometimes I will say that I prefer winter here, because I have, of course, my tales of going to school uphill both ways as a teenager, as a kid, where you would have really intense. We would actually get so cold with ice crystals in the air, so it was really pretty. Like the sky is all reflective, like the air is sparkly. But then when the wind blows, you get like ice crystals in the face, and when your skin's already frozen, that kind of sucks. So, yeah. But the winter sports and those fun things are what I miss about Canada.
Shaky.
Another thing that I would miss is Canadian ginger ale. Canada Dry.
Well, we have ginger ale, but not the right one, apparently.
It's not the same.
Yeah, it's not the same.
Canada Dry is... I don't know how to describe it, it's different. It's something, it's just like this, there's little things like when you leave your home country that you don't realize you'll miss until you don't have it. Right? Oh, that's actually kind of nice.
That makes sense. Short little point. Next one.
That was the last point.
Oh, that was the last point. Well,
I'm sorry, just dismiss my ginger ale.
Right on time. No, I mean, if you want to talk more
No, that was
about the ginger ale, then, well, since the camera was almost dead, I would say thank you very much for watching. Find their links to their social media in the video description. And apart from that, again, thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to get Germanized. Goodbye and auf Wiedersehen. And now the camera goes off.